My name is Deva, and yes, it is my actual birth name. For reals. I have always identified myself with my voice. Whenever someone asked which of my senses could I live without, I used to reply, all of them but my voice. I started singing at a very young age. I showed musical ability at 3 years old when I would sit at the piano and plunk out known songs. I then started singing along to them, and it is in those moments that a performer was born. I started competing and winning at the age of 7, and I was hooked. I represented my country, singing in international competitions, singing in many parts of the world. My childhood left me with minimal self-esteem, but I would do so proudly if anyone asked me to sing. It was my solace, my passion, and it is what kept me sane through all the years of gaslighting and abuse, living with a narcissistic alcoholic father. Fast forward to 2013, and the incidents that transpired forever changed my world. On May 6th, 2 intruders broke into my home with the intent to harm or kill me, leaving a weapon at the door should I have returned home mid-burgle. On May 19th, my brother Brenton died by suicide, choosing to die by laying down in front of a train. I was diagnosed with PTSD, which resulted in lots of therapy, medications, and heartbreak. These events alone would have brought anyone to their knees, but sadly, my story didn't end there. On January 13th, 2015, I received a vile letter from my maternal grandmother, aunts, and uncles, 8 out of 10 of them, to be precise, saying horrible things to me and ridiculing my PTSD diagnosis. The very people who were supposed to love me unconditionally set a condition to their love. I confronted my grandmother because I couldn't believe she would go along with such an appalling display of hate and deceit. It turns out she did. And when I told her that reading the letter was the first time in my life I truly wanted to die, I wanted the world to swallow me up, she told me I deserved what I got. All of those events led to a diagnosis of complex PTSD. Therapy was bringing issues with my father's alcoholism and narcissism forward. The realization that narcissists had surrounded me my entire life became overwhelming. 3 weeks after receiving the letter, a paternal uncle decided to criticize and shame me publicly, telling everyone I deserved no compassion for I had shown none to my father. His accusations were built on the lies my dad had told him. Hundreds of people saw his posts, and many came to my defense. It wasn't until one of my university professors put him in his place, trying to stand up for me, that I indeed recognized the magnitude of what was happening, and I crumbled. I went to work the next time only to have my students' parents approach me to hug me. They commented on how awful my uncle was to do what he did. It is then that I realized just how many people saw my uncle airing his ugly, petulant opinions specifically intended to hurt me. I managed to keep it all together until October 18th, 2015. The school where I was working was highly toxic and had been for years. Our boss was abusive to all the women. She often spared the men, and she relentlessly would go after one person at a time. It seemed to be my turn, and she chose to do it while I was away with students on a choir retreat. I had a complete breakdown. That was the end of me, and it was the beginning of my voice being silenced. I spent years off work, in therapy, going to group therapies for suicide survivors, and trying to make sense of all the traumatic incidents that had happened within 2 years. Every day was a struggle to stay alive. I dealt with suicidal ideation and spent many days on suicide watch in various ways. I was fighting for my life. I didn't want to die, and yet I didn't want to exist anymore. It doesn't make sense to those who have never experienced those feelings, but that was my daily battle. Fast forward to January 2020. At this point, I had spent a few years healing. I moved out of the big city of Toronto to my hometown where I grew up, Elora. It was the last place I remember ever being truly happy. It was the best thing I could have done for myself because I settled in quickly. I was on waiting lists for many trauma programs, and lucky for me, a spot finally opened up in one that happened to be in the next town over. My healing truly began with a group of the strongest, most amazing women I had ever come to know. I made a vow after reading a woman's response on Facebook to the question asking everyone how long they had been dealing with PTSD. Her answer was 43 years and counting. I was stunned. I decided at that moment that my story would be different. I was going to do whatever it took to heal and move forward. My journey had begun, and I was willing to try anything. I did yoga, meditation, soul coaching, did a course on angels, did my Reiki level 1, read every book I could find on moving forward and self-improvement. The list goes on and on. It started working. I felt stronger and more capable of taking on the world, but I still hadn't found my voice. It had been at least 4 years since I had sung in public. There was one final confrontation to be had, and sadly, it ended many friendships. I stood up for what I believed in and had taken on the responsibility of confronting someone head-on instead of participating in the endless talking behind their back. I was very quickly thrown under the bus, but I wasn't going to back down, and I removed myself from the show I was involved with because I wouldn't put my name on something that could potentially question my integrity. Sadly, these people I had called friends used my mental health against me and told me I needed more therapy and needed help. I knew better, though. They didn't like that I was standing up for myself and my beliefs against them. I had reclaimed my voice. It is here that I vowed to use my gifts and talents to help others. So now, I speak for those who can't. I also help entrepreneurs find their voice in business and become the leaders they know they are inside. I teach them better ways of connecting and communicating, which will help them in their business and at home and in all their relationships. My passion project is working with tweens and teens on building emotional resiliency skills by finding their voice in life so they can achieve their goals and find what lights them up, pursue what they're passionate about, and reach for their dreams. All of this with the intention of bringing awareness to mental health issues and suicide prevention. Before succumbing to cancer, my friend Allison's motto was to hear her roar as a way of fighting. In honor of her and my deep felt love and respect for her, I shall take on the same. Hear me roar.
Thank you for tuning in. I would be forever grateful if you hit that like button. Make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you can be notified when more videos drop.